everyone, the last time you heard from me, it was on the days leading up to surgery, and I only planned on having one operation, but I ended up needing two. So, over the next few videos, I'm going to tell you about my experience of having surgery at Parkside Hospital with Tina Rashid being my surgeon. And all I can really say is, I'm quite happy with how it went. So I was admitted to Parkside Hospital the day before surgery, which was perfect for me as it gave me the night to settle in and make sure I was calm for the actual operation. So I arrived at the hospital at 4:15, ready for my admission time of 4:30. I filled out the admission form, then after a short wait, someone came down to take me to my room. They offered to carry my bags for me, so I let them carry two of them. We then went to the lifts that was near reception, and we went up to the second floor to where my room was, which would be my home for the next week. When we got to my room, the person showed me around. The room had everything I needed in it, including a TV, some chairs, a table, a bed, and a private bathroom, all to myself. It also had the internet that I can use on my laptop, and also my cameras with me to keep me entertained. Although I didn't expect anything to get stolen, they also provided a safe that I could use and set my own pin to for when I weren't in the room. I was also shown this thing that can be used to turn the lights on and off, and could also be used to call the nurses if I needed them. Once I settled in, a person came with a dinner menu, which was a bit of an issue with me because I have issues with food. But the person was quite nice and it explained to me what the food on the menu was. So I just ended up ordering this chicken thing with a potato and carrots, just to see what it's like. After this, a nurse came and put a name tag thing around my hand so I could be identified. They went through some paperwork with me and also did a blood test. Once the nurse did what she needed to, she left and my dinner came. And let's just say the only thing that got eaten was the top half of the potato. Everything else had gravy on it, which I didn't even want to touch. Although the food would be good enough for a normal person, it completely put me off wanting to eat any more hospital food. But luckily I brought my own, and I ended up eating a gingerbread man instead. After dinner, the nurse came back and checked my blood pressure using a machine. I put it around my arm there, and everything for that came back fine, but she also had to repeat the blood test and something went wrong with the first sample. Eventually I also had a blood thinning injection put into my stomach, which would prevent me from getting blood clots while in the hospital. Not long afterwards, the night nurses took over, and once again my blood pressure was taken, which I thought was a bit odd as it is so soon after the last one. But it just turns out I just like to take it regularly to make sure I'm safe. At bedtime, even though I was having my first ever operation in the morning, I wasn't scared or worried, and I was actually quite happy. I felt quite safe at the hospital, so felt like I didn't have anything to worry about. I went to bed for a little while, but then was woken up again by the noises of the nurses talking to other patients. I decided that instead of laying in bed, not being able to sleep, I ran myself a bath and washed my hair. Afterwards, I spent some time looking out the window, which I found to be quite relaxing, before I eventually went back to bed for 3 hours. On surgery day, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning and just listened to some music while I waited for the nurse. At 5 AM, the night nurse came back in and gave me this thing that I have trouble pronouncing. I'm going to try saying it, an ammonia. Basically it's a bottle that goes into your butt and they squeeze the liquid into your bowels, and you try to hold it for 10 minutes so that all the liquid can empty your bowels, so there's nothing in there for surgery. I wasn't allowed food after midnight, and I wasn't allowed to drink anything after 6 AM to reduce the risk of complications from surgery. The nurse also gave me some stockings, which I found to be quite comfortable, although most people seem to think they're uncomfortable for some reason. I just like how I feel. I was also given a surgical gown, a pair of socks and some underwear. I needed to ask for some help with putting a surgical gown on as it opens up at the back, which is obviously the other way around to clothes I usually put on. So the nurse helped me get changed and then she just tied it up behind me because it had like some strings there. I couldn't quite work out what the underwear was at first because it is quite big, so I actually thought it might have been a hat. Around 7:30, the anaesthetist visited my room to discuss my anaesthetic options. I had emailed the hospital a few weeks before to ask if I could be awake for surgery, and it was confirmed I could be. I was told that since I would be awake for surgery, I would be given a spinal anaesthesia as well as an epidural for when the spinal wears off. The spinal and epidural would obviously be injected into my spinal fluid through my spine. I was told that the anaesthesia had a 1% chance of failing, and if it did, I would have to switch to general. It was suggested too that I'd have a light sedation just so I didn't panic and stay calm, but it wouldn't be enough to make me unconscious. At one point, the anaesthetist asked me to fully open my mouth so he could see if they could insert a breathing tube if one was needed. I can't fully open my mouth, so when I did do that, at first the anaesthetist thought that I didn't actually fully open it. But this is like the most I can do. But that was good enough. He then left with both of us happy with the plan. Not long afterwards, my surgeon, Tina Rashid, came and visited me so I could sign the consent forms. It was quite straightforward. She just had to make sure I understood what the surgery was, explained what would happen, the risks, and then I just needed to sign a consent form. I was originally told that I would be having surgery around 8, but it turns out I was swapped with someone else, so I ended up having to wait a few hours, but I didn't mind. That person was probably more anxious than me. While waiting, I checked to see if I could find a bug in their TV operating system, just to make sure I didn't do it while I was bedbound. It didn't even take me a minute to find a bug that causes the TV to freeze, which meant you have to turn it off and back on by the plug for it to work again. It'd been really annoying if I actually broke the TV while I was bedbound. Around 10:50, 2 nurses came up to take me down to theatre. They checked my details to make sure I was the right person. Once all was confirmed, they had me pick up a pillow from my bed and we walked down to theatre with me holding it. The operating room was on the floor below me, so while waiting for the lift, I had a good look at myself in a mirror to see what I looked like before having surgery. When on the first floor, we walked past the recovery room where you go immediately after surgery, and then I was taken into anaesthetic room number 1. And of course, this is where I do the anaesthesia. I had a good look around at everything, since it was quite interesting, sat on the bed, and then had a chat with a nurse about video editing while we was waiting for the anaesthetist. I'm pretty sure they was trying to distract me to try and keep me calm, but I wasn't nervous at all. When the anaesthetist arrived, they once again checked to make sure I was the right person for the operation, and of course everything was right, but they wanted to make sure they 100% had the right person, because you can't have someone who's going in for another operation suddenly come out and have gender reassignment. Afterwards, they put an IV in my hand here for sedation and another one in my arm around here, which would be for the fluids. When they gave me for sedation, I didn't even realise they gave me it at first because I didn't really feel any different. It didn't affect the way I thought, and all I really felt was slightly lightheaded, but I thought that was because of the drugs they gave me. It didn't seem to affect my ability to think, and I was fully aware of what was going on around me, so it's exactly how I wanted it to be. Now it is time to do the anaesthetic. The regional anaesthesia works by injecting local anaesthetic into your spine, which blocks the nerves from the waist down for a few hours, which is perfect for this operation. The only issue is this injection can be really uncomfortable. So to do the injection, they had me sit up on the bed and put my feet on a stool that was next to the bed and had me lean slightly forward a bit so I could find a spot in my back for where the injection would go in. They injected local anaesthesia into my back so that I wouldn't feel for a larger needle that was used for regional anaesthesia be injected into my spine. Once they'd done the injection, my butt started to feel warm and my legs got really heavy. They got me to lay down on a bed, and not long afterwards I couldn't move my legs or feel them at all, and I just found this quite funny, so I started laughing. I don't remember who said it, but one of the people in the room said, "Oh, we have a giggler." Once I settled down again, the anaesthetist did a simple test to make sure that the nerve block was working. They used like a bottle that's got a spray on it and sprayed my wrist, and then they started to like spray my leg, and they told me to tell them when it felt the same as it did when it got to my waist. It didn't feel the same until it got to my waist, so that means it worked. So everyone was happy for the operation to go ahead. When it was time for surgery, the bed I was on was pushed through these doors which opened up to reveal the operating room. The operating room was a nice lit up place with a friendly environment and music playing. While entering the room, I saw my surgeon and a few other medical staff standing around, ready for when the operation started. The surgeon asked me if it's okay for the music to be on, and I was happy for it to be on, because I know that music can help people be calm, and that's very important during surgery. The anaesthetist then put an oxygen mask on me to help me breathe while laying down, and then they put a blue sheet up, which they called a shield, which would prevent me from seeing the operation. Afterwards, they lifted my legs up onto a stand thing and then shaved me around the surgical site so the operation could begin. I then felt this weird feeling of an incision being made in my skin before the anaesthetist told me that the operation has begun. At this point, I knew that I could feel everything, so I would be able to follow how the operation was progressing. But it is a weird feeling, as although I could feel my skin being cut, there wasn't any pain. It was just slightly unpleasant, but slightly easy to manage with. I spent a lot of the operation just watching my heart rate monitor. It was just like watching the numbers go up and down a bit, which I did find quite interesting. And I also spent a lot of time looking at a monitor in there which had the Windows 7 logging screen on it. So at one point I actually was more fascinated with the computer than the actual operation I was having. After a while, when I felt safe and comfortable, I decided to take a nap, which wasn't hard as I was still quite tired from the night before. I had full control over when I could fall asleep, so it wasn't the sedation knocking me out, and I could have stayed awake if I wanted to. I had a nice dream about travelling places on buses. When I woke up, I felt a feeling of a tube being inserted inside of me, which I believe was a catheter. The vaginal cavity being made was a really interesting feeling, as I was able to feel in a place where I've never felt anything before. I wasn't bored during surgery and had a lot of interesting things to look at. During the surgery, the anaesthetist frequently asked me if I was comfortable, and I was, and overall the whole operation was uneventful. The only real uncomfortable part of surgery was towards the end, when my stitches were being put together, as it just felt like my skin was being stabbed like multiple times each second, but I was just happy to ignore it. Once the operation was done, I had some dressing put on around the surgical site, which was a bit tight, but held everything nicely in place. At the end of surgery, the bed that was in my room that I was staying in was brung down to the operating room so that they can transfer me from the operating table onto the bed and then take me into the recovery room. At this point, I had already regained control of my legs, so while I was trying to transfer me from the operating table onto the bed, I then started to move my legs because I wanted to help them do it. But it wasn't exactly the best idea. I did hear a voice saying, "Who moved their legs?" And then another person said, "I think it was a patient." So they told me I would text my legs up for one text, and I don't remember. But I did that, and then they put me onto the bed and pushed me out into the recovery room. feel like the operation went very well. Everyone did their jobs correctly, and overall I feel like I got very good results. After surgery, I was pushed to the recovery area. One of the nurses there said, "This one looks wide awake." So the anaesthetist said to them that I chose to have surgery while awake. The nurses did seem quite excited about it, as I was the first ever person to have this surgery while awake at the hospital. It's also said that I seem to enjoy having surgery, which is true because it is quite fun. I was then pushed into a small cubicle bit where there was another nurse there, and her job is to usually monitor people coming out of general anaesthesia, but as I was wide awake, there wasn't really how much she can do. They had to make sure I didn't have any nerve damage, so I just kicked my legs quite high up in the air. The nurse then said that I could go to sleep if I wanted to, but I refused because I had a feeling that my mum would be waiting in my room for me with some sausage rolls. And after surgery, I really wanted some sausage rolls. I was then offered a drink of water, which I drank really quickly in a few seconds. After this, I then just left on my own for a little bit. I repositioned myself into a more comfortable position, and I also had a heart rate monitor thing on my finger still, and that came off twice while I was waiting. So both times the monitor just beeped like I was dead. The nurses were never too far away from me, so I did hear them talking about how I was awake for surgery and it should be done for more people because it's easier, something like that. I think then my surgeon said that it's only for medical circumstances. So basically me. I spent most of my time in the recovery room fascinated about the fact that I just had surgery, but my mind was also on a sausage roll. I ended up being in the recovery room for around 20 minutes before the nurse Daniel came down and took me back to my room. When I was taken back to my room, my mum was there, and I of course was smiling because I was quite happy with what happened, and of course I was still bedbound, so I couldn't get up. But I was smiling because I did consider it a successful operation. And of course I was right, my mum did bring me some sausage rolls. Before eating though, I did ask my mum to take some photos of me. And because I was bedbound, it's a bit difficult, but I also showed her how to use my camera. She took some nice photos, but my favourite one is this one, which shows that I am calm but also happy. I also took another photo that shows all the stuff that's in my arm. I then said I was hungry, so my mum asked the nurse if it was okay for me to eat, and it was. So I ate a sausage roll and also some biscuits. After that, my mum asked me if I was in any pain, and my response was, I don't know. I have a high pain tolerance, so quite often I don't notice when something may be hurting me. After a while though, I started to feel a sharp pain around where I had surgery, so my mum suggested that I used the morphine that I had been given. So I pressed the call nurse button, and then she came in the room and gave me the controls for the morphine. My mum had a long journey home, so she had to go, and I was quite tired, so I just went to sleep. For the next few hours, I was checked on regularly by the nurses to make sure I was okay, especially though because my blood pressure got a bit low, but all ended up being okay. The morphine kept knocking me out, so over the next 4 hours I kept waking up around 10 to the next hour, and every time I woke up I just pressed the morphine button again because I thought I was meant to regularly press it, even if I went in pain. By the evening I was wide awake and spent some time on my laptop. I soon discovered the buttons on the side of my bed that make it move up and down and that sort of stuff, so I changed it into a position that I felt more comfortable in. During the night though, I started feeling a sharp constant pain coming from my hand, and I just assumed that was because I had a needle in it. But it turns out that all the tubes and that I had in my hand got all tangled up, and the needle actually came out of my hand. But because it is taped in place, instead of being in my hand, it's leaning on my hand and poking it instead. I did actually just assume it was meant to hurt like that, so I just left it. Because in my hand I had the morphine tube, and then in my arm there's also a bag attached to sodium lactate, something like that, and of course me moving a lot made it tangle up and then end up pulling it out. I did also have a catheter in my bladder to help me pass urine that had a bag attached to the end of it. Someone taped the bag to the side of my bed after surgery, and during the night it fell off and fell onto the floor. And as I was bedbound, I had to call a nurse to come and pick it up. The nurse then went and got a stand for me to put it on instead. I had assumed that the catheter, the morphine and the sodium lactate was the only thing attached to me, but the next day I'd find out there was much more. So in the next video I'm going to talk about my recovery in hospital, and then the video after that, recovering at home, and then more happens. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, and while you're at it, check out a playlist of my previous videos. Bye! And I'm back.